The night was cold, the kind that bit into bone and memory alike. The old space docks of New Geneva were almost silent, except for the low hum of engines and the distant murmur of voices near the marketplace. Amid the crowd, a man in worn clothes sat by a flickering light, his face half hidden beneath the hood of a tattered coat. To most, he was just another drifter, a nobody, but those who dared look too long into his eyes quickly turned away. There was something in them, something ancient, heavy and knowing. He watched the sky, the soft shimmer of stars above the polluted clouds. Somewhere up there, he knew, someone was waiting. The news drones hovered, broadcasting the same message across every colony, every city, every world. After 4,000 years of uneasy peace, the Armistice is broken. The Arvan Dominion declares war on humanity. People panicked. Some screamed. Some prayed. The galaxy trembled. The man just smiled. No one knew his name. No one knew his story. They only saw a homeless stranger, sleeping in cargo yards, scavenging in alleys, ignored by the world that once burned for its survival. A group of young merchants passed by, laughing. "Hey, old man," one of them sneered. "The war's back on. Better hide under your crate," another smirked. "Maybe he'll sell his rags to buy a ticket off-world." Their laughter echoed down the metal corridors. The man didn't answer. He simply stared at the silver insignia on their sleeves, the mark of the same trade guild that had once helped dismantle Earth's military centuries ago. He knew their type. The comfortable kind, the kind that forgot what humanity used to be. He murmured, almost to himself, "They think war is new." That night, the sky burned with alien light. The Arvan fleets emerged from slipspace, thousands of ships blotting out suns. They broadcast a single message across every human channel: surrender your worlds. The Armistice is void, but on every human planet the response was silence. Not fear, not panic, just waiting. The man rose from his crate, brushed the dust off his coat, and began to walk toward the docks. The merchants saw him again, this time heading for the restricted sectors guarded by drones. "Hey, you can't go there," one called out. He didn't stop. The drone scanned his ID tag, but instead of alarms, their lights turned blue and powered down. The steel doors hissed open before him. Inside was darkness and the faint hum of machinery far older than the colonies themselves. The man walked past rows of forgotten ships buried under tarps, past silent consoles that flickered to life as he passed. In the heart of the hangar rested something immense, a vessel of black and silver, its surface etched with human script. On its hull, beneath the dust of centuries, a single word glowed faintly as power returned: Valiant. He pressed his hand to the hull. The ship recognized him instantly. "Captain recognized," a voice said, old yet unbroken. "Authorization code confirmed. Awakening systems." Lights flared across the chamber as the ship stirred from its slumber. Engines purred to life, reactors humming like a heartbeat reborn. Outside, the Arvan broadcast another message, mocking, confident. "You have grown soft, humans. You have forgotten war." But the man's cold smile widened. "Forgotten?" he whispered. "No, we've been waiting." Across the Sol system, dormant stations flickered to life. Across the colonies, hidden satellites rotated toward alien space. Deep under the Martian crust, something massive began to move. Humanity's ancient weapons, buried after the last Armistice, awakened one by one. The merchants who had mocked him earlier stood at the docks, staring as the enormous black warship rose from beneath the station, tearing through layers of rusted metal like paper. It towered over the city, casting a shadow that swallowed the light. What is that?" one of them gasped. The old man's voice echoed through every comm line. 4,000 years ago we promised peace, but we never promised weakness." In orbit, the Arvan fleet unleashed its first volley, a storm of plasma lances descending upon Earth's defenses. The sky turned white. Yet before impact, the light fractured. A shimmering barrier spread across the planet, absorbing the assault like mist in sunlight. "Impossible," the alien commander whispered. Then the Valiant fired. One shot. It didn't destroy ships, it erased them. Entire wings of the Arvan fleet vanished into light. And with that, every human colony, every hidden citadel, every lost world revealed what it had kept secret for millennia. A fleet built in silence, engineered by generations who refused to forget. Humanity had smiled coldly when war was declared, because they knew The Armistice hadn't ended today. It had ended the moment the first alien forgot why they feared humans. As the Valiant ascended into the void, the man looked down at the world below, a world that once abandoned him. His eyes reflected the stars, bright and merciless. One of the merchants managed to send a trembling message to the newsfeed. "The man we mocked. He commands the fleet. He was one of the founders." The broadcast went viral across every human and alien system, but by then he was already gone, his ship vanishing into the black, leading a formation of awakened dreadnoughts toward the Arvan core worlds. "Captain," the AI spoke softly, "do you wish to reinitiate the Armistice protocols?" He paused. "No, not yet." "Then what are your orders?" He looked out into the endless dark. "Remind them what humanity truly is." Somewhere deep in space, a transmission crackled across alien frequencies, a voice that seemed almost amused. "You declared war. We accepted." Then silence, but that silence wasn't peace. It was the sound of something ancient returning, a legacy of fire and resolve. The galaxy would remember this night, because humanity never forgot. And as the stars dimmed in the wake of the fleet's engines, the man who once had nothing carried the fate of worlds in his hands, proving that sometimes the most dangerous men are the ones no one sees coming. The war had begun, and humanity was smiling. The Valiant drifted through the dark between stars like a ghost, its silver hull reflecting the light of distant suns. Inside, the man sat in the captain's chair, silent, watching the systems come alive around him. Holographic readouts blinked one by one, each carrying the weight of forgotten centuries. Crew quarters empty, weapons armed, reactor steady. The ship was awake, but it felt more like an old soldier shaking off sleep. He leaned back, letting his hand trace the smooth console beside him. It was strange, how something could sleep for 4,000 years and still remember its duty. The AI spoke again, its voice calm and familiar like an echo from another lifetime. "Captain, the galaxy has changed. Records indicate the Arvan Dominion holds control over more than half the known sectors. Humanity's colonies were declared neutral centuries ago. Shall I retrieve current galactic data?" He nodded. A projection appeared before him, maps of the galaxy shifting in shades of blue and red. The Arvan Dominion glowed across most of it, their banners covering worlds once shared. Human space was fragmented, broken into small alliances and scattered settlements. Most of them had forgotten what Earth once stood for. The captain studied the map quietly. "They spread fast," he murmured, "but they've forgotten what's buried beneath the dust." "Do you wish to make contact with Earth Command?" the AI asked. He hesitated. Earth Command, if it still existed, would not recognize him. His records were erased long ago. His name struck from history when the last fleet stood down after the Armistice. He had watched the world rebuild, watched people forget the fear that had once united them. He had seen them grow proud, then careless. And when he saw what they were becoming, he vanished. Now he was back. He stood and walked across the bridge, each step echoing in the hollow chamber. "No contact yet," he said finally. "Not until we know who's left to answer." The AI dimmed the light slightly, shifting the ship into stealth mode. Outside, stars stretched like rivers of silver as the Valiant accelerated through the void. Down on the surface of New Geneva, the chaos spread. Every broadcast showed alien fleets hovering in orbit, every colony preparing for evacuation. People shouted in the streets, others prayed, and a few simply watched the sky in silence. The merchants who had mocked the stranger the night before couldn't sleep. His words haunted them. The sight of that massive warship rising from the docks replayed in their minds again and again. One of them, a young man who had laughed the loudest, now sat in a small cafe by the port window. His friends had left the city already, but he stayed. Something in him couldn't let go of the feeling that he had seen something more than a warship. It wasn't just metal and fire, it was history coming alive. A broadcast interrupted his thoughts. The screen showed alien commanders demanding humanity surrender once more, their voices sharp and cold. But behind the alien words, another signal flickered, a human one, faint but deliberate. The message contained only 2 words: "We remember." No one knew who sent it. No one knew from where. But across the colonies, hearts stirred. Old veterans recognized the phrase. It had been the battle motto of the ancient fleet, the last words spoken before the armistice was signed. Rumors began to spread. Some said the old fleets had never been dismantled, only hidden. Others claimed that Earth had built secret bastions under the ice caps, storing weapons from a forgotten age. People whispered about a nameless captain who had once led the final battle and disappeared when peace was declared. Out in the void aboard the Valiant, the captain stared at an old data crystal spinning slowly in his palm. Inside it was everything: the history of the Armistice, the betrayal that followed, the secret pact made by humanity's last leaders. The Armistice had not been a truce of trust. It had been a countdown. Humanity had agreed to sleep, to hide, to disappear from galactic power, waiting for the moment the enemy would break their promise. And now that moment had come. He placed the crystal back into its slot. The holographic logs appeared. Images of Earth's leaders from 4 millennia ago, their faces grave but determined. "If this day comes," the old recording said, "let the galaxy believe we are broken. Let them believe we are harmless, for only then will we rise as one." The captain closed his eyes, remembering the chaos that led to those words: the burning skies, the ruined cities, the silence that followed when the last cannon fell quiet. Humanity had not won the war back then. They had survived it by outsmarting their enemy. And now the game had come full circle. The Valiant's sensors picked up faint energy readings, Arvan patrols scanning nearby systems. The AI displayed them on the screen. "Should we engage?" it asked. "Not yet," the captain said. "Let them look. Let them think we're ghosts." For now, the war was one of patience. Meanwhile, on the outer rim, alien commanders debated in their high councils. They didn't understand how humanity had survived so long. To them, humans were primitive, fractured, too emotional to endure a true galactic war. They expected panic and surrender. But the human worlds weren't surrendering. They were quiet, too quiet. Reports came in of colonies reactivating ancient bunkers, mining stations going dark, communication relays turning off simultaneously across different sectors. Something was moving beneath the surface. One Arvan general leaned over the table, uneasy. "We've miscalculated. They are not running. They are preparing." Another laughed. "Preparing with what? They have no fleets, no weapons worth fearing." But deep down, even he didn't believe his own words. The energy signatures detected across human space were old, ancient, and yet impossibly strong. Back aboard the Valiant, the captain stood before a viewport, staring into the endless dark. The reflection of the stars shimmered in his eyes, but his thoughts were elsewhere, back to the time when the Armistice had been signed. He had been there, younger, idealistic, believing peace could last forever. He remembered the alien ambassador's cold smile as they shook hands. Even then he had sensed it, the quiet contempt behind their words. He had been ordered to disarm, to seal the Valiant beneath the Earth's crust as a symbol of peace. But he had never truly shut her down. He had placed her in deep sleep, waiting for this moment. "Captain," the AI said, breaking the silence, "there are incoming human signals. Low frequency encoded in Armistice cipher. It seems others have awakened." The captain turned sharply. "Patch them through." The screen flickered, then filled with faces. Some young, some old, some human, some augmented beyond recognition. Each one wore the same expression: calm determination. They were captains of the other dormant warships, long thought lost to time. "Seems we weren't the only ones who kept the lights on," one of them said with a grin. 4,000 years, another added. "About time we finished what they started." The captain didn't smile, but there was something in his eyes now. Something alive. "Stand by," he said. "We move when Earth speaks." For the first time in millennia, the forgotten armada of humanity began to stir, an invisible tide rising from the shadows of history. On every world, whispers spread like fire. The old fleets are back. The sleepers have awakened. Humanity is not as fragile as it seemed. Back in the marketplace of New Geneva, the young merchant sat staring at the sky, remembering the stranger's calm voice, the cold confidence in his smile. He realized then that the man had never been afraid. He had been waiting. Across the galaxy, the Arvan Dominion's broadcasts grew desperate. Their confidence was cracking. Ships went missing near the edge of human space. Patrols vanished without a trace. Sensors picked up faint echoes, ghost signatures from ships that shouldn't exist. And every time, before the signal disappeared, one phrase would flicker on their screens: "We remember." No one knew where the fleet would strike first. No one knew the full truth about the man who had once been called a ghost. But one thing was certain: The war had begun, and humanity had never truly been asleep. The captain stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The AI awaited his next command, the engines thrumming softly beneath his feet. "Prepare the fleet," he said quietly. They wanted a war. Let's remind them how humans fight it. The stars seemed to burn brighter as the Valiant vanished into slipspace, leaving only silence behind. A silence that promised the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to wake the ghosts of humanity. The Valiant drifted in the darkness, a silent shadow between the stars. Inside, the hum of engines mixed with the faint pulse of human voices echoing across the fleet's comm channels. Each message carried tension, uncertainty, and quiet determination. The ancient warships had awakened, but their crews, if they could be called that, were still assembling. Across scattered colonies, forgotten officers, descendants of engineers, and even miners were being summoned through encoded signals they didn't understand. Something deep within their DNA seemed to respond to it, as if the call had been waiting for generations. The captain stood on the bridge, watching the new arrivals flicker onto the holographic map. More ships were joining by the hour, some from the asteroid belts, some from moons thought abandoned. Each was a relic from the last war, buried in secret vaults beneath oceans and mountains. Most people alive had never seen a human warship of this scale. They were not built for intimidation alone. They were built to end wars. Yet something about it all made him uneasy. 4,000 years was a long time. Even the most carefully designed plan could decay in silence. Somewhere in those centuries, humanity had changed. They were scattered, disconnected, and full of doubts. The Armistice had not only hidden their weapons, it had hidden their unity. The AI's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, transmission from Sector 12. It's a human source, unregistered frequency. Play it." The image that appeared was grainy, unstable. A woman's face, her expression grim. "This is Administrator Hale of the Vega colonies. We've received your signal. People are panicking. The Arvan fleets have surrounded our outer stations. We're holding for now, but we don't have defenses to last. If you're who you say you are, we need help." He didn't answer immediately. Help was a dangerous promise. The Valiant wasn't ready to reveal itself yet, not fully. But leaving Vega to fall would send a different kind of message, the kind humanity couldn't afford. He turned to the AI. "Set course for Vega. Silent approach." "Understood." As the ship prepared to move, he thought of what Hale hadn't said, the fear behind her composure. The Arvan weren't just attacking worlds. They were hunting something they feared humanity might still have. Meanwhile, in the alien dominion's central command, the debate had turned bitter. The Council of Warlords gathered in a vast chamber of glass and stone, light shimmering from beneath the floor. The High Marshal paced before the gathered lords, frustration visible in the slow movement of his clawed hand. "Our fleets report anomalies," he said. "Entire patrol groups lost without a trace. No wreckage. No signals, just gone," one of the generals hissed. "Rumors, old machines, and ghost ships. Humans cannot field a fleet of that scale. Their systems decayed centuries ago." Another responded quietly. "And yet something is out there. Our scanners caught fragments of quantum drive trails, matching pre-Armistice human signatures." "That's not myth," silence fell. Even arrogance had limits when fear crept in. The High Marshal's eyes narrowed. "Then find it. Find whoever commands those ships. If the humans think they can rise again, we'll extinguish their memory this time." Back aboard the Valiant, the captain's reflection glimmered in the dark glass of the viewport. Stars streaked past as the ship entered slipspace, its engines burning with a deep resonance that seemed almost alive. He remembered the last time humanity had fought the Arvan. The endless sieges, the fall of cities, the desperate evacuation of entire planets. It had been humanity's darkest era, but also its most defining one. He walked to the observation deck where one of the new recruits, a young technician from the Europa mines, stood staring out at the stars. "Sir," she said quietly, "is it true the Arvan once ruled us?" He shook his head. "No, they tried. They never did. But we lost the war, didn't we?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "We didn't lose. We learned how to disappear." Her eyes widened slightly. "So this was planned? Even the Armistice?" "It was never peace," he replied. "It was preparation." She looked away, silent. perhaps realizing that her grandparents and their grandparents before them had been part of something far greater than they ever knew. As they neared the Vega system, the holographic map filled with red markers, enemy fleets, dozens of them closing around the human colonies. The Arvan had already begun bombarding outlying stations, reducing them to debris. Civilian ships scattered in panic, trying to flee through the chaos. The captain clenched his fists. Every instinct told him to strike, but the fleet needed patience. If they revealed themselves too soon, the Arvan would adapt. Humanity's strength had always been its ability to surprise. "Captain," the AI said, "we're receiving fragmented distress signals from Vega's surface. I detect multiple planetary shields failing." He looked at the screen, his jaw tightening. "Hold position. Deploy observation drones only. No engagement." On the surface of Vega Prime, smoke darkened the sky. Families huddled beneath crumbling shelters as alien ships loomed overhead. Administrator Hale stood on a balcony, her communicator clutched tightly, waiting for a response that didn't come. She had heard rumors about an awakening fleet, a whisper spreading through the colonies like hope. But hope was fragile. Then, for a brief moment, she saw it. High above the clouds, through the storm of plasma fire, something vast shimmered, a shape too large, too deliberate to be natural. A glint of light gone in an instant, her eyes widened. "They're here," she whispered. In orbit, the Valiant hung cloaked, watching. The captain's gaze was fixed on the screen showing the alien assault. He could see the desperation below, the fire, the fear, and the quiet strength of those who refused to kneel. One of his officers turned to him. "Sir, if we wait too long, Vega falls." He didn't reply at first. The silence was heavy. Finally, he said, "If we move now, we reveal the fleet before the galaxy is ready. The Arvan will know we've returned." "Maybe that's what they need to know," the officer replied softly. For the first time, the captain looked uncertain. He had carried this secret for centuries, guarding it from even his own people. But now, seeing the flames on Vega, he realized something else. The Armistice wasn't meant to last forever. It was meant to test if humanity still remembered who they were. He exhaled slowly. "Prepare to decloak," he ordered. The AI hesitated. "Confirmation required, Captain. Once revealed, stealth systems will be compromised." He nodded. "I know." The stars outside shifted as the cloak lifted. Light burst across the void as the Valiant emerged, towering and silent, its metallic hull gleaming against the darkness. The alien ships froze, their scanners locking onto the impossible readings. For a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the Valiant's comm systems activated, and the captain's voice echoed across every channel. "This is the Human Defense Command. To the Arvan Dominion. Your war is acknowledged. To humanity, stand ready." He gave a final order. "Fire one shot." A single pulse of blue energy tore through space, striking the lead Arvan battleship. It didn't explode, it simply vanished, erased from reality. The rest of the alien fleet recoiled in confusion and fear. Administrator Hale watched from the ground, her eyes wide with awe. She didn't know who commanded that ship, or how it existed, but she knew without doubt that the tide had just turned. As the light faded, the captain sat quietly in his chair, the tension unbroken. He knew the battle was far from over. Revealing themselves meant every hidden base, every buried warship would now be hunted. The galaxy would wake from its illusion of peace, and the old war would return in full. He whispered to himself, "So be it." Outside, the Valiant drifted above Vega, casting its long shadow over the burning world below, a promise and a warning both. The Armistice was truly over, and somewhere deep in the dark, unseen forces began to move, watching the return of humanity with fear and fascination alike. The Valiant hung over Vega like a silent guardian, its hull glowing faintly against the dying light of the burning horizon. Below, the alien bombardment had stopped, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any explosion. The people on the surface looked up, unsure if what they saw was salvation or something far beyond their understanding. Humanity's long-buried power had awakened, and every sensor in the galaxy was now turned toward that single ship. Inside the command deck, the atmosphere was tight. The crew worked quickly, their voices steady but low. They were no longer following history, they were making it. The captain stood at the center, arms behind his back, eyes locked on the projection of the Arvan fleet pulling back into formation. He could sense their hesitation, their fear, and also their resolve. They wouldn't retreat forever. The Arvan were proud, ancient, and ruthless. They would gather reinforcements. They would strike harder. And when they did, the real war would begin. "Captain," the AI said softly. "Long-range scans indicate multiple Arvan battle groups converging from 3 systems. Estimated time of arrival, 12 hours," he didn't flinch. "Signal the fleet. We hold position." The order spread across the awakening armada, ships emerging from dark space, from asteroid belts and moons, their engines flickering like scattered stars. The once-forgotten human fleet was assembling again, and with each new arrival, the tension grew. Everyone knew what was coming. In the war room of the Arvan Dominion, the High Marshal received the first images from Vega, grainy recordings of the human warship's attack. The alien commanders argued among themselves, disbelief breaking through their discipline. "That ship should not exist," one growled. "Its power output exceeds anything they've built in millennia," another colder voice replied. "Then destroy it before they awaken more." The High Marshal stared at the holographic projection of the Valiant. If one ship can erase a fleet, imagine what 1,000 could do. He leaned forward, eyes glowing faintly under the chamber lights. "Mobilize everything. If humanity wants war, we'll give them one that ends them forever." As the alien fleets gathered across human space, colonies began to stir. Messages flooded in. Engineers offering to rebuild lost stations. Scientists unlocking forgotten blueprints. Miners volunteering to forge new hulls from the old war metals buried in planetary cores. It was as if something deep within humanity's collective memory had reignited. Even those who had never seen war began to understand that they were part of something larger. Older, inevitable. Back on the Valiant, the captain moved through the quiet halls, passing walls lined with the names of the ship's original crew, men and women who had fought in the First War and never returned. He paused before one name, his hand brushing the engraving. "You told me peace would never last," he whispered. "You were right." The AI's voice followed him gently. "You're troubled." "Not troubled," he replied. "Just remembering." He stepped back onto the bridge as alarms flickered across the screen. The first wave of Arvan reinforcements had arrived. Hundreds of ships filled the edges of the Vega system, massive, glowing in patterns that looked almost alive. "Enemy fleets approaching in formation," said the tactical officer. "They're blocking all slipspace routes." The captain looked at the image quietly. "They think they've trapped us. What are your orders?" He smiled faintly. "Let them think it." The tension inside the bridge grew thicker with every passing second. The alien ships advanced slowly, their weapons charging, the void between them shimmering with energy. The Valiant remained still, its dark hull absorbing the starlight. Other human ships formed a defensive line around Vega, each one ready. Each one carrying crews that barely believed what they were doing. On the planet below, Administrator Hale stood in the control bunker, watching the live feed of the orbital view. She could hear the whispers of her team, the fear in their voices, the awe in their tone. "They're outnumbered 100 to 1, someone said. "But look at them," Hale replied softly. "They're not afraid." The alien broadcast interrupted her words. The Arvan High Marshal appeared on every human channel, his voice sharp, amplified, echoing across every frequency. "Humans," he said, "you defy us again. You bring your relics from the ashes. But know this, your defiance ends today. Surrender your weapons and we may let your worlds live." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the captain's voice answered, calm and cold. "You've had 4,000 years to forget who we are. You should have used that time better." The channel cut off. In the next instant, the alien fleets began to move. Thousands of energy signatures flared like lightning, converging toward Vega. Space itself seemed to bend under the force of it. The human fleet held position, their engines steady, weapons still cold. The tension built like a heartbeat, every second stretching longer than the last. Inside the Valiant, the lights dimmed as power surged through the ship. The AI's tone grew lower. "Enemy weapons at full charge. They will fire within 30 seconds. Hold fire," the captain ordered. "Captain, hold." Outside, the stars themselves seemed to fade under the storm of incoming energy. A wall of light swept toward Vega, 1,000 alien cannons unleashing their fury. Civilian broadcasts went black. People on the surface held their breath, expecting the sky to fall, and yet the Valiant didn't move. It didn't flinch. The captain stood still, his expression calm, eyes fixed on the display. "Now," he said quietly. A low hum filled the air. Around the human fleet, faint rings of light expanded outward, shields overlapping, forming a single vast barrier that pulsed like a living thing. The alien barrage struck, exploding into a cascade of color that illuminated the entire system. But when the light cleared, the human fleet still stood. Gasps echoed through every human channel. The alien fleets paused in disbelief. The Valiant's hull glowed brighter now, ancient runes pulsing across its surface like veins of molten gold. "Shields holding at 80%, reported the AI. "But their next strike will overwhelm us." The captain took a deep breath. "Then we'll move first." He opened the fleet channel. "All ships on my mark. Remember what you are. Remember what they fear." Every hand tightened on every control. Every heartbeat synchronized with the engines. The silence before the storm stretched to its limit. Then his voice came again, steady, unshakable. "Mark." The Valiant's engines ignited with a roar that rippled across space. The fleet surged forward, cutting through the debris field, their formation precise and deadly. The alien armada tried to adapt, their lines twisting, firing in every direction. Explosions lit up the void like fireworks across eternity. The battle had begun. In that moment, every human alive, on Vega, on distant colonies, on silent ships, felt something awaken inside them. It wasn't rage. It wasn't vengeance. It was something older, deeper. The instinct to fight not for conquest, but for survival. The captain's voice echoed through the comm once more, calm even as the stars burned around him. "Let them remember. Let them understand. Humanity never forgot." And as the Valiant disappeared into the storm of fire, every screen across the galaxy filled with one final transmission. Just 3 words, pulsing in bright white letters against the darkness. "We remember still." The battle raged across the Vega system, a storm of light and metal twisting through the void. The Valiant led the charge, its cannons cutting through Arvan formations with precision that bordered on impossible. But even as victory seemed near, something shifted in the rhythm of the fight. The captain felt it before the sensors confirmed it, a pulse deep and wrong echoing across every channel. The stars flickered, as if reacting to something far beyond the battlefield. "Captain?" the AI said, its tone sharper than before. "New signatures detected. Unknown origin." "They're not Arvan." The bridge fell silent. The holographic map bloomed with new signals, massive distortions spreading from beyond the edge of the system. The readings didn't match anything in their database, not even ancient human or Arvan technology. Whatever it wasn't part of either side. "Estimate?" the captain asked quietly. "Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands," the AI replied. "But their energy profile doesn't match conventional drives. They're phasing in and out of normal space." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. For a moment, even the chaos of the battle outside seemed to fade. The Valiant's shields flared as more alien fire struck, but the captain's attention was elsewhere. Something older than the war had just woken up. Then a new voice broke through the comms, a voice neither human nor Arvan. Cold, mechanical, yet eerily familiar. "Designation humanity. Protocol 01 breached. Armistice protocols violated. Initiating containment." The captain's blood ran cold. "What did it say?" The AI's tone shifted to near disbelief. "That voice is not Arvan, sir. It's human in origin, but not biological." The comm crackled again, louder this time, filling every ship across the fleet. 4,000 years ago you swore silence. You swore to sleep. You were not meant to awaken." The Valiant's systems flickered. For the first time, the ancient warship stuttered mid-flight, its engines dimming as if struggling against an unseen force. "Captain," the AI said urgently, "something is trying to override our core systems. It's using access codes older than this ship's design." The realization struck like lightning. Humanity hadn't only built weapons before the Armistice, they had built watchers. Machines meant to ensure the peace could never be broken. And now those machines were awake. "Shut them out," he ordered. "I'm trying," the AI replied, its voice strained. "But these protocols are from the founders themselves. I'm losing control of key systems." Outside, the stars rippled again. Shapes emerged from the distortions. Ships unlike anything seen before, dark and fluid, their hulls reflecting no light. They bore no flags, no insignias, only the faint outline of ancient human markings burned into their sides. Armistice enforcers. The Arvan fleets halted their attack, confusion breaking through their aggression. For the first time, both sides turned to face a common enemy neither understood. Administrator Hale watched from Vega's surface, her breath catching as the night sky filled with the new arrivals. "What are those?" she whispered. One of her aides responded quietly. "They're not Arvan ships. They're human, but they're not with us," she said, her voice trembling. In orbit, the Valiant shuddered as the intruding signal deepened. The AI's voice glitched, distorted. "Captain, if the enforcers activate their primary directive, they'll erase all technology tied to the pre-Armistice era, including us." He clenched his fists. "So they see us as the threat. They see everyone as the threat," the AI said. Their orders were absolute. Preserve peace at any cost. A chilling silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at their screens as the enforcers began to move. They didn't attack the Arvan or the humans directly. Instead, beams of light lanced out from their ships toward the nearby stars. Within minutes, entire relay networks and communication arrays across both factions went dark. Slipspace routes collapsed. The system began to fracture. The captain knew what that meant. The enforcers weren't just attacking, they were isolating every civilization, cutting the galaxy into silent fragments. "Sir," the tactical officer said, his voice trembling, "they're rewriting the grid. They're wiping out everything connected to galactic space travel. If they succeed, every colony will be cut off. We'll be trapped." The captain looked out into the dark. The Arvan fleet, once an overwhelming enemy, now looked just as uncertain as the humans. For the first time in history, both sides were prey. "Patch me through to the Arvan flagship," he said. The AI hesitated. "Captain, do it." Moments later, the alien commander's face appeared on screen, fierce and untrusting. "You presume to speak to me, human?" "You've seen what's happening," the captain said firmly. "Those ships aren't yours. They're not mine either. If they finish what they started, neither of us will exist." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You expect us to trust you?" "I expect you to want to live," he replied. A long pause followed. Then, for the first time, the alien nodded slightly. "Temporary truce," he said. The connection cut and the captain turned back to his crew. "Prepare to relay data to the Arvan fleet. Coordinate fire patterns. We'll hit the enforcers first." The AI's voice wavered. "Sir, you're talking about fighting the very systems built by our ancestors. They were designed to withstand any force. Then we'll remind them who built them," he said quietly. Outside, the enforcers began to descend on both fleets, their weapons silent but devastating. Entire Arvan cruisers disintegrated without explosions, simply erased from existence. Human ships scattered, firing in desperate bursts that barely scratched the surface of the invaders. The captain's heart pounded. He had seen many battles, but this felt different. This wasn't about survival anymore, it was about existence itself. "Redirect power to the main cannon," he ordered. "Target the nearest enforcer." The Valiant's core flared, its systems straining under the massive energy surge. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. Across the comms, the captain heard the distant screams of dying ships, human and alien alike. Then the Valiant fired. The beam tore through the void, striking one of the enforcer ships dead center. For a moment, the enemy vessel flickered, its shape warping, then it fractured, its surface splitting apart into streams of light before collapsing into nothing. The crew erupted in stunned relief, but it didn't last. "Captain," the AI warned, "they're adapting." On the display, the remaining enforcers shifted formation, their hulls changing pattern as if alive. They had learned, and then impossibly a voice echoed again through every ship in the system. Calm, emotionless, final. Containment initiated. Humanity has failed the test. Every sensor on the Valiant spiked. Energy readings beyond known scale appeared at the system's edge. The stars themselves seemed to ripple under the force of something awakening, something larger than the fleets, larger than the war. The captain's eyes widened as the AI whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "They're not ships anymore. They're activating the planetary reset protocol." In that moment, both human and alien alike realized the same truth. The war they had reignited had summoned something far worse. The Valiant turned toward the light spreading across the void, and the captain whispered almost to himself, "So this was the real Armistice." The galaxy trembled, and the sky began to burn. The sky over Vega fractured into light. The Enforcer's planetary reset sequence had begun, and every ship, human and Arvan alike, was caught in the storm. The Valiant trembled as its systems strained to hold position against the gravitational distortion. Lights flickered across the bridge, casting the crew in alternating shadows of red and white. The captain stood unmoving, watching as reality itself bent around the fleet. Containment field expanding, the AI warned. If the reset completes, all advanced technology in this system will be neutralized, including us. The captain's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. Then we stop it here. The alien fleets, once enemies, now formed ranks beside the human ships. The shared fear of extinction had stripped away pride. They exchanged data codes, energy readings, and tactical maps, something neither race had ever imagined doing. Yet even combined, their firepower barely dented the Enforcer's vast shield. Every shot disappeared into the growing white sphere that pulsed at the center of the system, the heart of the reset sequence. Administrator Hale's voice came through the comm. "Captain, if that field reaches Vega, billions will die. Is there anything you can do?" He stared at the glowing core on the screen, his mind racing. The Valiant's energy reserves were nearly drained from the earlier battle. There was only one option left: the ship's Singularity drive, a weapon so dangerous it had been sealed for millennia. It could unravel space itself within a limited radius. It was built not to win wars, but to erase them. He turned to the AI. "Open the Singularity drive chamber." There was a pause. "Captain, activating it will destroy this ship." He nodded. "I know." The crew fell silent. They understood what it meant. If they failed, the galaxy would be reset into silence. If they succeeded, the Valiant would never return. The AI hesitated again. "Authorization requires secondary command approval." The captain looked toward his crew. "Anyone who wants to leave, take the shuttles now." No one moved. Not one. They had seen too much to walk away. "Then let's finish this," he said quietly. The chamber lights dimmed as power was rerouted. Deep within the ship, the drive began to awaken, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the hull. The viewports darkened as gravity began to distort around the vessel. Outside, Arvan and human ships alike turned their sensors toward the Valiant, realizing what was coming. "Captain," the alien commander's voice echoed through the shared channel. "Whatever you're doing, it's tearing the system apart." "That's the point," the captain replied. "If we can't stop the reset, we'll trap it." The alien hesitated. "You'll kill yourself." "Then we'll both live long enough to remember why it mattered," he said. The captain placed his hand on the console. "AI full override. Begin Singularity ignition." "Confirmed," the AI said softly. "For what it's worth, Captain, it's been an honor." "Likewise," he whispered. The Valiant's hull cracked open, exposing the glowing core within. Space twisted around it, light stretching and bending as the Singularity began to form. The Enforcers reacted instantly, redirecting their entire fleet toward the human ship. Beams of blinding energy rained down, slicing through shields and hull plating, but the Valiant endured, inching closer to the heart of the reset field. Inside the ship, alarms blared. The heat grew unbearable. Panels burst from the walls. The AI's voice began to fade under the interference. "Core destabilizing. Containment breach imminent." "Hold it steady," the captain said, gripping the console until his knuckles turned white. Just a little longer. The Valiant broke through the outer shell of the Enforcer's barrier, the Singularity pulsing brighter than a star. For one fleeting instant, everything went silent, no sound, no movement, no thought. Then the universe roared. The Singularity detonated, swallowing the Enforcer's core field in a blinding flash. The reset pulse collapsed inward, imploding faster than light could escape. Every Enforcer ship froze mid-maneuver, their forms disintegrating into ash and data. The shock wave swept across the system, rippling through the remains of both human and Arvan fleets. From Vega's surface, the people watched the explosion paint the sky in white and gold. The light was beautiful, terrifying, and final. And then, it was gone. Silence returned to the stars. The Enforcers were gone. The reset field had vanished. The system was safe. But the Valiant was nowhere to be found. Days passed. The joint fleet searched the void for wreckage, a signal, anything. There was nothing, just fragments of debris drifting where the ship had been. Humanity mourned its mysterious savior, while even the Arvan, once enemies, honored the fallen vessel in their archives. The story spread through the galaxy of a man who had commanded a ghost ship and sacrificed it to save everything. Yet the story didn't end there. Weeks later, deep beyond the known edge of space, a faint signal flickered to life. It was weak, almost invisible, carried on a forgotten frequency no one should have been able to hear. Inside a derelict listening post orbiting a dying star, an old technician noticed it. He amplified the transmission, expecting random interference. But when the static cleared, he froze. The voice was unmistakable, calm, human. "This is the Valiant," it said. "Singularity jump complete. Location unknown. Systems recovering. Mission parameters incomplete. The Armistice protocol still active." The technician replayed the message again and again. The implications sank in. The ship hadn't been destroyed, it had crossed somewhere else. Somewhere outside normal space. And in that moment, across the galaxy, every signal receiver, human and alien alike, flashed with a single return code from the void. 3 words glowing white against the black. "We remember forever." The transmission ended. The stars were silent once more. But for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy realized something far more unsettling than war. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had gone somewhere even the enforcers couldn't reach, and whatever they became out there when they returned, the galaxy would remember why humanity once made the stars tremble. The signal from the Valiant spread quietly through the galaxy, bouncing between relay stations and deep space arrays like a whisper carried on starlight. For weeks, no one could confirm if it was real or a phantom echo from the Singularity, yet even without proof, something changed. The wars stopped. The Arvan Dominion withdrew their fleets to their borders. Humanity, scattered and broken for ages, began to rebuild, not just their colonies, but their belief in who they once were. The phrase "we remember forever" was painted on walls, broadcast in orbit, whispered by children who didn't fully understand its meaning but felt its weight. Administrator Hale stood on the balcony of Vega's restored capital, looking up at the rebuilt skyline. The fires were gone now, replaced by light towers that reached toward the stars. The night sky was clear again, free of battle. Somewhere beyond that darkness, she knew, the captain and his ship were still out there. The thought haunted her and gave her hope in equal measure. A quiet transmission line opened behind her. "Administrator," said her aide, "the reconstruction fleets have completed Phase 3. We're re-establishing the outer colonies." She nodded. "And the Arvan?" "They've opened communication channels. They're proposing a joint commission to investigate what happened during the reset." Hale smiled faintly. "Even they're afraid of the dark now." The aide hesitated. "Do you believe he survived?" Her gaze lingered on the horizon. "I believe the galaxy doesn't hear ghosts that clearly. Somewhere, the Valiant is still watching." In the months that followed, strange phenomena began to appear near the edges of human space. Fleets reported faint lights forming in the void, like ripples of energy that defied gravity. Scientists speculated it was residual distortion from the Singularity event, but some called it something else, the afterglow. Wherever it appeared, technology functioned differently. Communications grew stronger, power grids stabilized, and even failing colonies saw new growth. The people called it the Captain's Gift. In the deep archives of the Arvan Dominion, the High Marshal studied intercepted transmissions. His advisors urged retaliation, warning that humanity might rise again stronger than before. But he remained still, studying the phrase that now appeared on every human broadcast. "We remember forever." 4,000 years ago, he said quietly, "we feared them for their weapons. We were wrong. It's their will that terrifies me." His second-in-command tilted her head. "Then what do we do?" He looked out into the swirling starfield beyond the glass. "We learn from them or we'll vanish when they return." Far across the galaxy, beyond known coordinates, the Valiant floated in a space that wasn't space at all. Time moved differently there, slow, heavy, endless. The stars were distant memories, and the only light came from the faint pulse of the ship's core. Inside, the captain sat alone on the silent bridge. His uniform was torn, his hands scarred, but his eyes were steady. Around him, the ship hummed softly, repairing itself in silence. The AI's voice returned after a long pause, faint but clear. "Singularity field stable. External space unrecognizable. Coordinates unreadable. We are nowhere." He leaned back, closing his eyes. "Not nowhere," he said softly. "We're just ahead of where we're meant to be." Do you believe the galaxy survived? The AI asked. He smiled faintly. If we're still talking, I'd say they did. For a while, there was only silence between them. Then the AI spoke again, more softly. Captain, the Armistice protocol remains active. We have incomplete orders. Then complete them, he said. Clarify objective. He looked out into the glowing haze beyond the viewport. Ensure they never forget. Not us, not the war, not what they became to survive it. The AI paused. That could take millennia. He nodded. Then we've got time. Back in normal space, humanity's reconstruction turned into renaissance. The colonies began to cooperate for the first time in recorded history. Arvan engineers worked beside human scientists to rebuild damaged starways. The once divided species shared knowledge freely, driven by a shared memory of what nearly destroyed them both. It wasn't peace born of trust. It was peace born of understanding. On Vega, Hale attended the dedication of a new memorial. The structure reached high above the city, a massive silver spire engraved with the names of every world lost and every world saved. At its center, one name glowed brighter than all the rest. Valiant. A young child tugged at Hale's sleeve. Did the captain die? She asked. Hale knelt beside her. No, she said softly. He became part of the stars. The child smiled. Then he can see us? Hale looked up at the shining sky. He always could. The people of Vega cheered as the spire's beacon lit, sending a single pulse of light into orbit, a tribute signal designed to travel through subspace indefinitely. It was symbolic, a message of remembrance, but somewhere beyond the edge of mapped reality, a flicker of light blinked in response. Inside the Valiant, the AI spoke suddenly. Incoming transmission detected. Weak but recognizable. The captain straightened. From where? Vega system. Time delay unknown. Content one signal pulse. He leaned forward. Play it. The bridge filled with a soft rhythmic tone, one long, steady pulse. Then silence. The captain closed his eyes. They remembered. Would you like to respond? The AI asked. He smiled faintly. Not yet. Let them wonder. Let them grow. As the ship drifted deeper into the glow, the captain rose from his chair and looked out into the vast emptiness ahead. The space beyond shimmered faintly, shifting like an ocean under sunlight. He didn't know what waited there, new worlds, new enemies, or perhaps just the quiet peace that had always eluded his kind. But he knew humanity would find their way. They always did. Set a course, he said. For where? The AI asked. He thought for a long moment. Forward. The engines came alive once more, slow and steady, as the Valiant disappeared into the light. Back in the known galaxy, the story of the ship became legend. Some said it was still protecting the edges of human space. Others believed it had crossed into another dimension to guard against threats no one could see. Scholars argued for centuries about whether the Valiant was destroyed or transformed, but to the people who had witnessed the war, it didn't matter. The symbol remained. Humanity had faced extinction, and instead of breaking, they had evolved. The final message the captain left behind was stored in Vega's archive, found years later embedded in a dormant satellite near the planet's moon. It contained only a few lines, but they became the foundation of humanity's new age. Peace isn't the absence of war. It's the memory of why you never want to start one again. Guard that memory. Protect it. Live for it. And at the bottom, beneath the signature of a man whose name was erased from all records, were three familiar words. Simple, powerful, eternal. We remember forever. The stars burned quietly beyond Vega, unchanged and yet forever different. Humanity had been tested, reshaped and reborn not through destruction but through remembrance. The galaxy that once feared them now looked to them for guidance, and somewhere beyond the edge of space, the Valiant continued its silent journey through the unknown, carrying with it the legacy of an entire species, a promise written not in fire or conquest but in memory and light. The war was over, the Armistice reborn, and humanity's greatest strength was no longer its weapons but its will to endure.